Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another round of our IRL PCF1 2019 Championship, and the calendar takes us to the outskirts of Marseille, to the Circuit Paul Ricard. Of course, coming back after an absence of almost 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, as this track has 15 turns, an extension of 5.8 kilometers each lap is going to be repeated 35 laps this afternoon, of course, during race pace, not counting the qualifying session. Of course, as it is probably known in the real life, Grand Prix was a bit of a snore fest or a snooze fest, but in terms of my experience in game, this race is the stage for some of the most exciting races I've seen in league racing. So hopefully we can have one of those here today. Moving now to our standings, we have Shadow still leading the championship with 111 points, 42 ahead of second place in Famous, as his teammate Plexits follows in P3, only 4 points behind P2. Then we have a bit of a gap for P4 in the best of the McLarens and in Haters. iCurly is the second best of the reserves in 5th, followed by Iceman with 40 points. Lehman not too far behind in the best of the Williams, followed by Dazlad, who sits in 8th, J. Cole in the second McLaren in 9th, and Entity as the Slovenian completes the top 10. Now moving to the constructors, as you guys can see, Renault still leads the championship with 176 points, 85 points ahead of the Alfa Romeo team as they sit with 91. After that we have Woking-based McLaren with 80 points, almost over double the amount of points scored by the Williams team, who sits in 4th with 44 points, 10 ahead of the Silverstone-based Racing Points. After that we have a tie for 6th place between Red Bull and Haas, as Ferrari follows in 8th with 19, Toro Rosso in 9th with 11, and the Mercedes team unfortunately so far hasn't scored a single point. So with that we can get ourselves started with our qualifying session. Just going to minimize some stuff on my second monitor, and we can get ourselves started. So just going to get the information for you on your monitors. And oh, Joe, well, thank you for the kind words, I appreciate those. And yeah, welcome chat, welcome to the live stream. And how are you guys doing? Let me know throughout the qualifying who would be your bets for the best performances in both qualifying and the race. We have Dazlad on your monitors at the moment. The Racing Point driver did not show up for Canada, unfortunately wasn't able to show up, so maybe he could get back to an extension of his previous form. He has finished every single race he attended in the points. His lowest finishing position at 9th place at Bahrain, his best a 5th place at the tight street roads of Azerbaijan. So he didn't show up for Canada. Hopefully he could get at least in the second half of the top 10, as he's been doing for most of the season. Let's see how it goes for him though, as we're actually going to wait since he's close to the end of the lap. We're going to get ourselves on board with him, going rather slowly. Pretty sure he's just trying to get out of the way of some of his rivals, or just conservate the tire temperature and the engine temperature as well, because of course the long Mistral straight does demand quite a bit from it. Let's get ourselves out of turn 15. It does need a good throttle application to put the power from the tires down to the tarmac smoothly, as the RS is wide open at the back of the cars. We approach about 60-70 meters away from turn 1, a bit steep from the British driver, gets wide on the exit of turn 2. Hopefully he didn't get a slap in the wrist from the game. Going now slightly downhill into the chicane of turn 3 and 4, decelerating further for the tight right-hander of turn 5. Now you go under acceleration, a bit of a complaint from the rear tires of the Racing Point, a bit of a lift on the throttle before going balls to the wall, as he gets himself the RS wide open at the back of the car, pushing maximum power from the hybrid power unit in the back of his car. Now hard on the brakes as he downshifts into 4th, down into 2nd for the chicane, and away he goes once again to the second half of this very long straight. Basically not a blink on the throttle as he gets through turn 10, and now it's a test of bravery. Who is the last of the late breakers into turn number 11? You can gain quite a few tenths by doing so. He's going to get himself now through the long left-hander off turn 12, avoids the curb on the inside because that can unsettle your car. You also must have precision with the throttle application. Now into turns 14, very long, it tightens, so you must compromise the exit of it to get a better approach into turn 15. Once again, good application of the power. The DRS wide open is going to cross over the line, and it is a 132.1 on those medium tires. Bailey Thompson is our debutee for today. There's actually multiple debutees today. Bailey Thompson is racing for the first time for the Alfa Romeo and is currently on provisory pole with a lap time of 131.8. Jumping to a Rotograph, who actually has a few drivers ahead of him in famous gas provisory pole with a 130.9. Very good lap from our Mercedes driver, or our reserve driver of the Mercedes. Going to jump back to Rotograph. Let's see what he can do with his Williams. I do believe Kaibashimi was right ahead of him. No, he was not. There was another car. It was a Renault. I apologize for that one. It is Shadow on the softs getting provisory pole. Rotograph got his lap nullified, so he's going to have to try again to get a lap time with that set of softs. He's pushing at the moment mode 5 of ERS. We are going to find out later on if he's going to be able to get a lap time done or not. Iceman is not his teammate, but Iceman from the Alfa Romeo team does the same mistake. Kaibashimi and JSR do the same mistake as well, getting their laps nullified. Chaos is getting himself back into the pits, and Miss Q, the Belgian driver, also a reserve for the Mercedes today, gets a 135.3 on those softs. So surely he also had a mistake somewhere along the way. Looking up and down the order, Chaos is back into the pits, right? Yes, he's back into the pits. We have Superior GR, who is still in the first sector with his Red Bull. The Greek driver hasn't been able to finish in the top 10. Looking at chat, is this Bailey's first week? No, it is his debut in the PC. He used to race in the Xbox. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the info. Thank you for the info. I also see in chat a bit of a member of Dazlad's fan club, if I can say that. So some support for the Racing Points driver. But yeah, as I was saying, the Greek driver that you can see on your monitors, in 3 races since his debut, he finished 13th, 11th and 13th. So he hasn't been able to score any points. Hopefully he could get his point scoring season started here at the French Grand Prix. So he's going to get himself to the end of the lap, getting himself now to turn 14 as he prepares himself to approach the last corner of the French layout. Let's see how it goes for him. In the meantime, I imagine that Iceman is going to cross the line ahead of him, and Iceman completes 2 laps, still hasn't set a lap time on the board. Superior GR does the same mistake. We do have a few drivers on their outlaps. We have Kruzix through turn 7, we have Cisco, the Portuguese driver, on an outlap, and Andy Nater with his McLaren just started his flying lap. So let's go on board with him while we speak about his results history. The British driver of the McLaren has as a best result a 2nd place at China. He hasn't finished in the podium at any other time. 2 4th places at Monaco and Canada, so at least he's on good form. The 2 races before that he wasn't able to show up. Before that he got that podium at China. 8th place at Bahrain and the DNF at Australia. So the season didn't necessarily start in the best note, but he was able to get back to a good performance at China, and since then he got 2 4th place finishes, so hopefully he could be a strong contender for a top 5 finish today. You can see Shadow, our championship leader, in chat, maybe doing the rain dance, not sure. Of course, in the game I do believe the rain is fairly common. I've seen a few league races get to the rain. Ooh, a bit of a tank slapper there from Andy Nater. I did say while running down the lap of Dazlad that you must avoid that inside curb. He didn't, and he got a bit wide on exit. Not sure if the game penalized him for that. He's going to get himself through the line though. And is it going to be a lap time? Yes, 4th place! As we were talking about him getting 4th place finishes, there you have it. That's consistency on point there from the British driver, as the camera has a bit of a stroke, which is understandable since Sandy Nature just ignored much of the first set of corners. Going to take a look at down the order as Cisco completes his lap, gets 10th place, the Portuguese driver of the Ferrari. We have Kruzix, who is currently in Sector 2. We have Chaos, who just started a flying lap on the hards. So that's a bit surprising, but he is out there on the hards at the moment. Just trying to find out someone else who could be on a flying lap. There's a bunch of drivers on out laps at this point. So we're going to jump to Kruzix, as the reserve driver of the Red Bull is going to finally try to post a lap time. Let's see if he's going to be able to. He did a mistake in the previous attempt that didn't allow him to put a table on the board. Let's see, will this attempt be the one that allows him to do so? P3 with the 130.284, very close to iCurly, who is back to a good performance after a disastrous Canadian Grand Prix. And nonetheless, very good result, very good lap there from Kruzix. In the meantime, Curly just started a flying lap of his own. We're going to follow that one a bit later on. We had Chaos is back on an out lap. Not sure what happened. I could swear he was on a flying lap, so not sure what happened. We have Rotograph on a flying lap, just about to end first sector. Kai Bashimi is a little bit closer to the end of his lap. Let's take a look at Tesla, who's also through turn number 5. Infamous is also in sector number 1. And we have iCurly in sector 2, Shadow as well in sector 2. So just really trying to figure out who is the closest to finishing a lap. Let's say probably Rotograph at this point. Well, let's follow with the Williams driver, the reserve driver of the Williams, as he hasn't finished the race. He debuted at China, got the DNF, then came back again for Spain, got the DNF, got the DNF at Monaco, and got the DNF at Canada. So, I mean, every single car he drives is destined to end up in bits, apparently. So, yes, he was relegated to the Williams team as the only team that was accepting of having a go at his skills, as he gets himself P13 as he crosses over the line with a 132.9 on the mediums. Does have to work a bit more to get into the top 10. Jumping now to Infamous, getting now through the last corner of the layout, is improving by about half a second. Shadow improves to 130 flat, and Infamous, what a lap, a 129.8, gets himself on a provisory pole. So it is indeed very close stuff between Shadow and Infamous, but I do think Infamous has an extra gear over the Renault driver. The Renault driver is still the championship leader though, so there's a bit of work Infamous has to do if he wants to catch up. Plexit's just started his flying lap, and United is on an outlap. Ace of Spades, another of our debutees, is replacing Julian, who left the league, so he's driving for the Ferrari. He's getting himself back into the pits. JSR, also one of our reserves, is about to get to corner number 15 and to complete his lap. He's currently doing better than his teammate, but his teammate's lap time has been done on the hards. JSR is going to cross over the line, and it does improve by over a second, but the lap was nullified, so he's going to have to try again later on. Jumping to Mist Q, who sits at the back of the table at this point. Going to get himself through the last sector. Mist Q, who debuted only at Canada. So the Belgian driver debuted at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, got a respectable 8th place. Let's see if he can do better than that this time around at the French Grand Prix. He's going to take his number 51 Mercedes through the last few corners, and is actually going to abort his lap and take it to the pits. Now let's jump to another driver, as we have Plexits, not too far away from the end of the lap. A bit of a complaint from the rear tires as he accelerated over the curb. 6th place. A good result there from Plex. It's pretty sure you would be happy with a better lap. Nonetheless, 6th place is the best he could achieve for now with a 1:30.6. There was another driver who was on a flying lap. It is Andy Nater, who's improving by just over 4/10 at this point of the lap. Hopefully he can maintain that pace until the end and possibly even improve on that, as he's currently sitting in 10th place. A 4/10 improvement would get him a 1:30.8, which would put him just ahead of debutee Bailey Thompson. Let's see what Andy Nater does. He's going to get himself through the last corner. Smooth on the power mode, 5 of ERS. DRS wide open at the back of the McLaren, going to cross over the line, and it is a half a second improvement. Promotes him up to P7 with a 1:30.7. Now, taking a look at other cars who, in the meantime, have started flying laps. We have iCurly with a lap of his own. I have mentioned previously the disastrous Canadian Grand Prix from the Swiss driver, and I say disastrous because he finished in P9. He had multiple pit stops, multiple mistakes he had during that race. He was leading comfortably, if I'm not mistaken, but then he had a mistake, got overtaken by a bunch of drivers, then had to pit for damage, and then it was all went downhill for him. Still adds the pace and the composure to get 2 points and the fastest lap, but of course that result doesn't even get close to the 2nd place he achieved at his debut at Spain and the win he got at the following race at the streets of Monaco. He's actually going to pull himself back into the pits, going to nullify his own lap as the Portuguese driver of the Ferrari, Cisco, who only has 1 point courtesy of his 10th place finish at China, and unfortunately he hasn't done anything of note before or after that 10th place finish, and he went really slow there, if I'm not mistaken. It looked to me like he's going very, very slowly. I probably corner cut somewhere and he's going to nullify his lap. We have Chaos just started with his lap. We have Ace of Spades also started with his lap, as going into mode number 1, so he probably cut corner 1 or 2 and is letting some of his rivals through at this point. Jumping back to Chaos, getting himself now to turn number 5, as Rotograph was right behind him. Yes, he was, but he's still on an out lap. So let's follow Chaos for a little bit, as the Belgian driver hasn't gotten above P12 as his best finishing position. He debuted at Canada, so has only had a sample size of 1 race. I actually do not remember if that 12th place was on pace or due to incidents. Nonetheless, hopefully he can do himself a favor and get a better performance, starting with his qualifying session, as he's currently 13th place with less than a minute to spare. Hopefully all those drivers currently on out laps don't pull off a Monza and don't get out on time to start their flying laps. So we have Chaos at the moment getting himself to turn number 14. Kaiwashimi about to start. That's not the greatest. Kaiwashimi was still on out lap. Pretty sure he was trying to start with the racing line for his flying lap, as Chaos gets P7, but unfortunately Kaiwashimi might have something to explain to the stewards after that one, but that's not for me to decide. Let's see if any decisions are going to be made after the end of it. So you can see the checkered flag is shown to some of the drivers. Andy Nater, Plexit, Deslad and iCurly won't be able to improve, so best case scenario they maintain their positions. Bailey Thompson got caught out on an out lap, won't be able to start another flying lap. So let's get ourselves to Infamous, who improves to a 1:29.6, a great lap from him. Shadow, is he able to respond? How is he able to respond? Gets himself through the line, only a 1:10 improvement, gets himself in a 1:29 nonetheless, over 3/10 clear of his rival. We have Kruzix getting himself now through the start of sector number 3, improving by 2/10 at this point, so he could still demote iCurly and get himself the first spot of the second row of the grid. So let's see how that one goes. Let's just jump to Iceman. I do believe, yes, Iceman is ahead of Kruzix in terms of on-track positioning at this point. And we have also Superior GR right behind him. So let's see how it goes. Will the Belgian get himself up in the top 10? Let's see. And it does not. Superior GR also does not. And will he get an improvement of 4 tenths, but the lap got nullified, so he's maintaining P4. Deslet in P5. Chaos is going to try again, it looks like. JSR, where is he? Oh, JSR is out of the track, so he's not going to improve, I don't think. And Ace of Spades getting back to the pits. Chaos is on mode 0. So, yes, there's no other driver at this moment doing a flying lap. So this is it for our qualifying session. And Rotograph, unfortunately, maybe he had a collision, maybe he spun, something happened to him, because he didn't retire in the pits, that's for sure. So Rotograph isn't going to be able to improve due to a big mistake on his last attempt. It's going to start from P15, at least provisorily. There might be some penalties perhaps, I don't know. I didn't catch any messages from race control, but just waiting for the game to realize the session is truly over so we can get onto the results as we follow Chaos. Toro Rosso getting back into the pits, and finally the game realized it is over. Hopefully it doesn't even make a pit stop, so okay. But yeah, there you have it. Finally, Infamous gets P1 as Shadow completes the British front row lockout by getting his Renault in P2. Then iCarly back to a good performance in P3. Kruzix P4, Dazzlat P5. Kaibuchimi with his best qualifying performance so far in P6, followed by Plexits in P7 with Chaos in P8 and Inator P9 in the best of the McLarens, and then Bailey Thompson on his debut beating Iceman, so very good job from him. Iceman is going to be the first out of the drivers that are able to start on fresh rubber, as A4 Spades gets debut performance of P12, then JSR, Mist Q, then Rotograph, Cisco, and I apologize, do not remember the last two drivers of the grid. So now we are going to the transition, and there you have it. The rain can play one of its tricks around the Paul Ricard circuit. At least in this game, I do believe it's common. So it will be raining at least for the start of the Grand Prix. Looking at the garage from Mist Q on the bottom right of your screens, I don't know if you guys can see that, but yes, the Pirelli Cinturato greens on the garage out of their blankets. So probably that's would be the tire of choice for the conditions. So it's going to be an intermediate tire start. I haven't gotten any information regarding how long it's going to rain for. So let's see how it goes. Certainly spiced up the conditions. Certainly spiced up this race a little bit, as of course most of the drivers, I assume, have prepared their cars with a dry setup. Of course they were able to figure out that the race was going to start in the wets, but I do assume the race is going to be mostly in the dry weather. But of course, if you are with a dry setup in the rain, that you can get caught out. Even these drivers that are currently at the top of the table. It's going to be an exciting race to find out if Shadow can pull his punches against Infamous. Infamous has been dominated every race he entered. Infamous has debuted at China, took P1, took P2 at Azerbaijan, a race that was won by Shadow due to a mistake of the Mercedes driver, if I recall correctly. Then he didn't show up for Spain, didn't show up for Monaco, and he won on his race back at Canada. So Infamous has a bit of his inconsistency in terms of showing up for the races at fault. So it would be probably a better closer battle for P1 in terms of the standings. As it stands, Shadow nurses a over 60-point lead to Infamous, who is precisely our P2 in the points standings. Also have to see yet if Bailey Thompson can get respectable points paying position on his debut. He did have a good performance. Iceman is no slouch and he beat him. So good performance there from Bailey. Ace of Spades not as well, got himself only P12, but hopefully he could get himself a good strategy perhaps and claim a few points at the end of this race due to that. So our drivers are getting themselves through the last few corners and are going to get slotted into their designated spots on the grid as the autopilot kicks in, guides to the cars to their correct placement on the starting grid. Just going to jump to Superior GR as the Greek is going to occupy the 17th slot, the last slot at the moment. Bailey Thompson is going to get himself late to the party, going to be the last one to join our drivers. Going to jump up to Infamous, as there you have it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go for the French Grand Prix. You have a good start from Infamous and from Shadow Eye. Curly also with a good start. Dazzlight not as good of a start, I would say, compared to Cruisix. Cruisix is maintaining P4 for the time being. Plexits is going to try to have something into turn 1. There's a bunch of cars very close together. It's 3 wide through turn 2 as there's contact between the Renault, the Haas, and there's a pile-up, a massive pile-up. Both Toro Rossos got collected in all the mess. Chaos is going sideways, pushed by Ace of Spades. Williams also rejoining the track. Not sure if he's going to have any notifications to give back any positions. There's probably massive amounts of damage from most of our cars below the 10th place. Cisco, Rotograph and Superior GR, all of them climbing 6 places as they got through unscathed. So very unfortunate stuff for some of our drivers, especially our debutees. As jumping back to the front, Infamous still leads the race. Curly got the jump on Shadow somewhere along the way. Cruisix maintains P4. Plexits got himself up to P5. Iceman also taking advantage of everything that happened around him to climb up to P6. And Mist Q gets himself up to P8 as well. Endinator now overtakes him as Cisco is also in a bit of a battle. No, it's not Cisco that's battling. Ace of Spades has considerable amounts of damage, as you can see. He even understeers very wide. Kaibashimi is going to say thank you very much, going to climb up a position. But yeah, that he actually got through all of that chaos without front wing damage. So very lucky from the youngster. And as you guys see, we actually got a very good view of that. It was a 3-wide moment between Plexit, Kaibachimi, and I do not recall who the other driver was. But of course 3 wide, sometimes even with the arrows it might not be as good to notice or as easy to notice when you have cars around you. And that 3 wide moment ended up with a massive crash as it was quite close to the beginning of the pack. So very chaotic lap 1 sees Endinator, JSR, Chaos, Ace of Spades and Bailey Thompson all into the pits at the end of it. So all are going to have a replacement of front wings, and especially our debutees are going to get shoved back to last places of the pack. Going to reclaim a few positions as some other drivers overtook them just because their garage is further onto the pit lane. So they aren't dead last, but they are pretty damn close to it. Now, looks like stuff has normalized. Shadow has made a mistake somewhere and he went from P2 down to P4. This would be a race where it really counted for him to do some sort of damage. He's going to try to take advantage of that. We have them side by side as we approach turn number 12. Let's go on board. iCurly does have the inside line. Cruisix is going to have to try to pick up the acceleration. Ooh, a bit earlier, a bit of a squirmy rear end from Curly there, as Cruisix doesn't quite find the daylight to stick his Red Bull in there. He does get a better exit out of 14. He's going to park the bus on the apex of 15. Curly does get a better exit overall as he does the switchback. There's contact between the front tire of the Racing Point and the rear tire of the Red Bull. Nonetheless, Cruisix makes his way up to P2. Shadow can't do nothing else than look from afar any developments. Cruisix does go very wide into turn 1. Curly moves up to P2. Shadow might be able to pick up any pieces there. Is not quite able to put the traction down as early as he probably wanted, and is going to have to sit in P4 for the time being. Now, going to continue following this trio, that promising a good battle. Even Plexits is starting to get close to the party, as of course there is a bit of argy-bargy between those three guys, and that allows the second Renault driver to close in on the events. Curly and Cruisix getting a bit wavy there, trying to nullify the RS from one another, and Cruisix manages to pick up second place at the end of the Mistral straight, as we get now after the chicane, picking up the throttle once again, and you can see the visibility conditions of the drivers, especially on those slower corners when cars bunched up a bit closer. There's quite a big amount of water knocked up, especially if you are following two cars, as Curly does a mistake for the second time in the same corner, and Shadow is going to move up to P3. Will Plexits be able to have a say on that? Not yet. He's too far away to capitalize on any sort of events. In the meantime, Cisco has lost a battle with Dazzlight for P10, and now is coming to blows with the reserve Greek driver of the Red Bull team, and he is trying his best to overtake the Portuguese, but no luck so far. Infamous gets himself through the lap to start lap number 4, fastest lap of the Grand Prix with a 1:44. Didn't quite catch the 10s, but it was a 1:44. Cruisix gets P2 for the time being, starting to pull away a slight bit from Shadow. Curly demoted to P4 after his mistake. He needs to be a bit more careful into turn number 11, I believe that one is. Yes, it is turn number 11, the one he lost the rear at under braking for the second straight lap and got lucky first time around. It did allow Cruisix to pressurize him and eventually get P2, but it wasn't overtaken directly from that mistake. But the second time running, he did lose P3 directly because of that mistake. The number 73 is trying to hunt down the 57 at this point, but nothing to come of it just yet. So we're going to take a look further down the order, looking at the gaps. It is only Superior GR within a second of Cisco's. We have Bailey Thompson. Is that a mistake from him? Maybe. The RS is not open for, or not available for obvious reasons, and Bailey Thompson, maybe a mistake putting the traction down or putting the power down and losing a position. Curly and Shadow are coming to blows as they get through the middle of the third sector. Ooh, a bit of a counter-steering moment there from Plexits. He's not feeling comfortable at all with the conditions with his setup. So Curly needs to be patient. Once again, the rear wants to go everywhere. Plexits is going to throw himself down the inside. There is contact between the Renault and the Racing Point. The Racing Point maintains himself in P4 for the time being. The British driver, or sorry, the Dutch driver of the Renault isn't going to back down that easily. It is a Dutch or a Netherlands versus Switzerland battle at this point. And Switzerland is ahead, even though struggling to keep ahead. Curly maintains P4 for the time being. Very close stuff between the two of them though. Jumping back to Superior GR, who's still giving close chase to Cisco. Looks like the Portuguese got a wide exit off turn 15. Now on the sprint to turn number 1, Superior GR isn't closing in enough, but he is a bit braver on the brakes and is right at the back of Cisco. Took a bit too long to turn into turn 2 though, and that forced him to take a tighter approach and lost a bit of the time he has gained into turn 1. But he looks himself a bit more comfortable than Cisco. Cisco isn't really able to pull away, so we might have some action also between the Portuguese and the Greek driver. Jumping back to the battle for P4, Plexits is still giving very close chase to the Swiss driver. So it goes, and once again Curly has a mistake, and I think there was contact. There could have been contact. I don't see. I'm going to try to figure out if there's damage. There's no damage in the front wing of Curly, but I do believe at least the rear tire of the Renault collected with the front wing of the Racing Point. Very fortunate, the Swiss driver, to not sustain any damage through that incident. Now he lost touch with the remaining drivers of the top 5, and Iceman is now going to be pressurizing the Racing Point driver. Going to take a look at the position changes, and as you can see, Iceman got 5 places since the start, as it is Andy Nater. I don't think Andy Nater was ahead of them. So Andy Nater overtook both Cisco and Superior GR in one go. So both of them got overtaken, and Andy Nater is trying his best to recover. I assume he was collected, or at least shoved down the order by the first lap chaos, and now he's trying his best to recover. Overtook both the Greek and the Portuguese, and now they are going to be battling for P12 instead of P11. Iceman still giving close chase to Curly, as Dazzlet gets a 5-second penalty for extending the track limits one too many times. Very unfortunate stuff for the British driver of the Racing Point. Curly goes deep into turn number 8. Let's see who gets the best exit out of 9. Iceman looked like he had this car a bit straighter, so that means he can put power down earlier. It's going to be side by side as they approach turn 10. Iceman lifts off a little bit. He's going to try to have the switch back. He does pick up the throttle sooner. Now let's see who is on the brakes later. Curly, this time around, maintaining his car stable through there. He has had his fair share of warnings, so Iceman just needs to pressurize him through there. And as it being shown, off the time, Curly loses the rear through there. In the meantime, Cisco has lost the place to Superior GR into the chicane of turns 8 and 9. So the Portuguese driver of the Ferrari has to concede the position. JSR is getting very close to the Portuguese, going to throw himself down the inside of turn 11, and he does make the move stick. Cisco goes very wide. He has damage on the left side of his front wing. Jumping once again to Iceman, who, by the way, his teammate Bailey Thompson has retired from the race. I do understand the frustration. It is rather unfortunate stuff to see, but Bailey Thompson, he did get a good qualifying performance, couldn't convert that with a point scoring performance and his debut. So, jumping to the Alfa Romeo that's still racing as Cisco goes into the pits for a replacement of front wing. We have Iceman chasing down Curly. Is he going to pull the trigger? Doesn't look like so just yet. We have Cisco going for the full wet tires. So looks like the rain isn't going to stop. It is indeed raining quite hard. So I am not sure if this is actually a correct choice from Cisco, or if it is the absolute worst. I'm going to go on board with Cisco actually. I'm going to try to figure out, as he's going to get himself through the first few corners, I'm going to try to figure out the sort of traction he has. He goes wide there. Doesn't look like the car. It doesn't look like it might become full wet conditions soon, but not at this exact lap. It is not yet full wet conditions, as yeah, he's struggling for grip. The car is still on the track, he's not completely missing it, but yeah, looks like there might be a point for the full wet tires to be brought out by the teams and drivers, but this lap is not the time just yet. It does show that these intermediate runners are going to get, or to find, increasingly harder to maintain the car on the track, or at least have good traction out of those Pirelli Cinturato Green, as Dazzlet got a bit ago a second 3-second time, not a second 3-second time penalty, but a second penalty, this time around 3 seconds, as Andy Nater is actually going to get past him. Not much ceremony, and he gets completely missing the braking zone into turn 1. Dazzlet really losing the plots there, and he's going to get a big penalty. Oh, actually not. The game understood that he missed the brakes. Okay, so at least the game took that one into account. Not too bad, but yeah, the intermediate drivers, yeah, he's really missing the marks there. I'm going to try to figure out. He does have damage. That might have something to do with it. Superior GR gets overtaken by JSR as the Greek driver gets a 3-second time penalty. I'm going to jump once again to Iceman and Curly. So going to reach the point where Curly has had his fair share of mistakes through the Grand Prix. As you can see, his rear getting quite loose. And yeah, you can see how quick Infamous is. And of course, there was a bit of scrabbling between the remaining drivers of the top 5. Every driver in the top 5 has had a battle apart from Infamous, so that helped things. But yeah, looks like finally the full wet tires are getting out for our drivers to enjoy. Infamous is the first one to pit for them, out of the leaders of course. Crucix follows, Shadow also follows. Plexits is going to bite the bullet and is going to go on for another lap on the intermediate. So of course the Renault team didn't want to risk stacking, so it is what it is. Curly is getting himself out of the pits in P6. Iceman is going to be very close to him. Rotograph going to swap tires as well. We have Mist Q going to jump up to P9, Rotograph to P10. There's JSR and Dazlad getting themselves through the pits. Ace of Spades, of course, is going to get himself a set of full wets, as Cisco had done a few laps before. And we also have Chaos. He's so far behind, he hasn't even entered the pit lane, and for a moment it looked like he was going to miss it. So yeah, most drivers on track are now on the Pirelli Cinturato Blues, apart from Plexits, who didn't want to stack behind his teammates. We have Kaiba Chimi, who not sure why he went for that choice. I mean, if the intermediates are working fine for him, great, but I would say it is a bit of a questionable choice from the youngster of the Haas, as the number 14 is going to get overtaken by Shadow without great ceremony. And you can see on the background Kaibashimi did go wide, so he's really struggling. He's losing a big amount of time. As you can see, Shadow is just outright quicker. Superior GR gets a second 3-second time penalty, so 6 seconds of penalties are going to be added to his final race time if he does indeed complete the race. Plexits is going to get rid of the Cinturato Blues, going to change for the greens. Let's see. Sorry, the reverse. He got rid of the greens and is going to get the blues. Kaibashimi gets a 5-second speed limit disrespect, or I'm lacking the word, I apologize, but it did exceed the pit limit speed on entry. And he got slapped in the wrist with a 5-second penalty. Rotograph is out of the Grand Prix. Going to try to figure out where Chaos is quite far behind, so I'm going to be able to figure out where Rotograph did lose it. And I do believe he lost it into this corner. I don't see his car anywhere. But yeah, he lost it at the exit of turn 10. So very unfortunate stuff from Rotograph, as he is the second victim of this French Grand Prix. Iceman lost out actually. Oh no, Endinator is going on the intermediates. Is Endinator trying to wait for this rain to pass? I'm not sure if he's waiting for the rain to get lighter. Maybe the rain is supposed to get lighter later on, and he's just trying to do so, trying to get through this period without going for the full wets. I don't know if that's the case. If that's the case, that is a ballsy attempt from the British driver. He's making it work though. Iceman is finding it difficult to overtake him into the turn 8 and 9 chicane. He does get a better exit now, of course. There's a bit of a limit to the amount of water those intermediates can clear, so just in terms of traction, Endinator has a disadvantage, of course, as well as he might keep his car balanced, and as well as he can drive his car in terms of outright traction, he does have a disadvantage that he cannot overcome. So Iceman eventually moved up to P6, and yeah, Rotograph left the session after crashing his Williams. Very unfortunate stuff for him. Plexits comes out despite going for that extra lap on the intermediates. Plexits returns to the race in P4 and 1 second only ahead of... Oh, there's a bit of a tussle there between Endinator and Iceman. Endinator trying to give back the favor to the Belgian driver of the Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately, he couldn't quite pull it off, but maybe a mistake there from Iceman allowed Endinator to get back at him. But as I was saying, Plexit is just over a second now from his teammate, but he didn't lose that much time, considering he was on tires that couldn't clear the same amount of water. He wasn't losing that much time, and Endinator doesn't look like... Okay, he's lost 2 seconds now, so yeah, I was going to say it doesn't look like he's losing too much time, but no, he's definitely losing considerable amounts of time at this point, as Kaibashimi makes matters worse for him by, after that 5-second penalty, gets now a 3-second time penalty. Of course, if the conditions change and he's going to pit for another set of tires, he's going to have to turn those 5 seconds penalty into stop and go for exceeding the pit lane speed limit. So he's going to get rid of those if he ever pits again. But then on top of that, he has the 3-second time penalty. Miscue had a bit of a sideways moment through the chicane, managed to keep the car on the black stuff. So for the time being, he's going to continue on occupying 8th place. Looking up and down the order, we have Dazlad, who has Superior GR in front of him. These are the two cars that are the closest to each other at this point. To be fair, I didn't get any data regarding the wet compound, so I do not know how many tires these, how many laps these tires are supposed to last, but I would estimate that they pitted at about lap 9, lap 10. I do believe they could take them to the end of the Grand Prix, perhaps, especially as they are the full wets. I do believe the full wets last a little bit longer than the intermediates. Correct me in chat if I am wrong, but allow me to elucidate myself on that one. As Dazlad has a go at Superior GR, but not really able to pull through. And yes, Shaolin Infamous is showing to be on a different level. I mean, we could get potentially some competition for Infamous, as Dazlad takes advantage of a mistake from Superior GR and beautifully gets done around the outside. What a maneuver there from Superior GR. Just takes advantage of, of Dazlad, as he takes advantage of the mistake from the Red Bull driver. Just says thank you very much and gets himself around the outside of turn 14. Rather beautiful maneuver from the British driver of the Racing Point. Endinator continues on his merry way on the intermediates. Kaibashimi and Miscue are going to start catching up, so this might be a free position for them. But as I was going to say before getting interrupted by the beautiful maneuver of Dazlad, just if you guys are enjoying it, just give a like on the stream. Of course, it tells the YouTube algorithms that what you are watching is good, that you are enjoying it, so it promotes it potentially to other people that could potentially sign up, so we could get more tiers and with that be able to flesh out the competition a bit better, right? Because Infamous, I'm pretty sure he starts to feel kinda lonely at the top, needs a bit of competition. In the meantime, about to start lap number 13 for the 3 cars on your monitors. Endinator is trying his best to maintain himself in P7. The Superior GR gets a third 3-second time penalty to his name. Miscue goes deep into turn 1. Kaibashimi sees his chance present in front of him. Let's see how it goes. He does get a better exit. He's going to move up to mode 2 of ERS. It's going to be side by side as they approach turn number 3. There's contact between both of them. Oh, and there's contact. There's a spin from Kaibashimi. There's a spin. Fortunately, there was no damage on the front wing. But Miscue, I don't think the Mercedes driver gave him any sort of space. He also spun as Dazlad is out. Dazlad, after a beautiful maneuver, is out of the Grand Prix. I'm going to try to figure out... Well, I can't... Yeah, of course the game gets me on his profile, because good job, Codemasters. So I'm going to carry on with Cisco. He's not that far behind. I'm going to try to figure out where he lost out. It was somewhere along turn 14 and 15. Wow, that's a wide... approach there from Cisco. And Dazlad, I assume putting the throttle down, went into the wall. Yeah, it just, his car has despawned So I assume that it just put the traction down or the power down and the tires were having none of it and planted the racing point in the wall. Didn't appear to have the reaction time to keep it under control. So unfortunately, it is what it is sometimes. IndyILR, in the meantime, was able to pull away from Kaibashimi and Miss Q due to all of the stuff that happened between them. Kaibashimi did get 8th place in the end, no damage. Miss Q also doesn't have damage, to my knowledge. Yes, he does appear to have an intact front wing. And they are keeping on their way. They are going to both get promoted a position though, as IndyILR is going to get a second set of intermediates. He is... Wow. I'm quite astonished, to be honest, at his reluctancy to go into the full wets. I really don't know. I mean, he certainly knows something that we don't. Maybe the rain is supposed to stop and he wants to make it to the end of the intermediates and try to get back the pit stop. He's trying to not lose as much time. That would nullify the fact that he's doing one less pit stop, right? Maybe that's the case. But we are going to have to find out, that's for sure. I do think he got around 10, 11, 12 laps on those set of intermediates. So maybe the wets do last the same. If they do last the same, then 5 more laps and the drivers will be looking to pit once again. Let's see how that one goes. Chaos is getting closer to Superior GR and he gets through the Red Bull driver. I don't know why the Red Bull is dropping so many positions, honestly. That was for position. He wasn't being lapped or anything. That was for position. And it just lets the Toro Rosso driver pass. Oh, now he's trying to give back the favor though. Brakes a little bit earlier than the Belgian driver though, and misses his opportunity to make it stick. Let's see how it goes for the exit now, and you can see, yeah, you can Ooh, there's a bit of a loose rear from him, and there's wing damage. That was definitely wing damage. No, there wasn't. I thought with the sound there was damage as Curly makes a mistake. Another mistake, drops down to P6 behind Iceman, and Iceman, I don't think he has made an overtaking maneuver that didn't involve his rivals having any mistakes. He survived the first lap chaos, moved up to P7, I believe, and now he's up to P5, getting past Curly. No, he did overtake IndyILR after the pit stops, and then IndyILR kept going on the intermediates. Superior GR gets now a 5-second penalty, so that's 14 seconds of penalties for the Greek driver, so doesn't look like it will be today that he can get himself a points scoring finish. Miss Q does have a mistake coming out of the chicane, and JSR says thank you very much, moves up to P8. The reserve driver of the Toro Rosso, who, as of note, a 10th place finish at Australia, a 3rd place finish at Azerbaijan, and a 9th place finish at Monaco, hasn't taken part of any other races, so he is back today, and with another solid points finish, so nicely done from the reserve driver of the Toro Rosso. Going to take a look. We had yellow flags somewhere. I didn't see anyone lose a position or gain a position, so I don't know what caused that yellow flag condition. It was lifted though in the meantime, so whatever was the issue, looks like it was resolved. Looking up and down the order, there's not much stuff going on at this point, so for the time being, actually the cars that are the closest to each other is still Exits and Shadow, as Superior GR does another mistake. That's 17 seconds of penalties to his name. He might get disqualified from this race at this pace. But yeah, Plexits is trying to keep himself within striking distance of Shadow. Of course, he still wants to beat his teammate. Plexits hasn't won any race. His lowest finishing position was P6.
He did DNF at Bahrain and did not show up for Azerbaijan. His teammate has never missed a race, and the only race where he didn't finish on the podium was the season opener at Australia, where Shadow got P6 after a great battle with Zerd, that sadly isn't racing with us anymore. But Zerd ended up winning that Grand Prix. Shadow was actually leading for most of it, but it was raining and he lost the rear coming out of turn 2, went into a wall, got front wing damage, had to go back into the pits for repairs. Then a safety car was deployed, which helped him do some damage limitation and get back to P6, but of course not the start of the season he was looking for. But since then, Shadow got 4 third places, a win at Azerbaijan and a 2nd place at Canada, and looks like he's on his way for a 3rd place finish here today. Plexit hasn't been able to sit on the top step of the podium this season. 2nd place at Monaco and 3rd place at Canada are his only podium appearances, with 4th place at Australia and Spain and 6th place at China. So that explains the discrepancy between the points accumulated by both Renault drivers in the standings, as we have Superior GR and Chaos coming to blows. Ooh, Chaos gets very close. Was there contact? Not sure. No, that doesn't appear to. Ooh, that's some argy-bargy right there. Superior GR just went wide. That's how much he was trying to get back at the Belgian driver of the Toro Rosso. But at the end, yeah, you can see Superior GR is getting an advantage by going off track there. I'm not sure if he's well. Oh, Chaos gets a 5-second penalty there for exceeding the track limit. Superior GR is going to get overtaken once again. But as I was saying, I don't think Superior GR is regarding the track limits too much. I mean, considering the amount of penalties he has, I would say he hasn't had much regard for them since the start of the race. He loses the rear and is going for the major corner cut. No, he's not. It would be quite funny if I can add that, if he got himself through there. I actually don't know what would happen, but yeah, got himself further down the order. I mean, not down the order in terms of the position, but in terms of his track placement. He loses quite a lot of time. In the meantime, JSR catching up to Kaibashimi, and we might have a tussle between the Haas driver and the Toro Rosso. Let's see, will JSR be able to pressurize Kaibashimi? Kaibashimi is on 100% ERS. He's going to actually pull up to mode 4. JSR also goes for mode 4. He's closing in, taking advantage of the slipstream. Let's see how it goes into turn number 1. He goes on the brakes. There's contact between the two of them. Nothing major came out of it. The Superior GR gets another penalty. I do believe he's what? 17 seconds of penalties at this point for the Greek driver. Really disastrous. Really not a disciplined showing from the reserve driver, as we have yellow flags somewhere for some reason. No idea why. Maybe Cisco, considering he has gone through the pits at some point again for another set of the full wets. And Inator is still going on the intermediates. JSR is still hunting down Kaibashimi. Ace of spades. Actually, oh, there's a moment for Miscue, who loses the rear somewhere. It was... oh, he actually lost his front wing. The complete front wing of the Mercedes is gone, and he's going to have to go to the pits for repairs. Ace of spades can climb up to P9. Let's see how it goes. Of course, Indinator is going to have worse time getting the traction down. Let's see who does get the better exit out of turn number 9. Mode number 1 of ERS for Ace of Spades, as Miss Q gets a 3-second time penalty. Understandably, probably cuts the chicane because the lack of downforce didn't allow him to make it through the braking zone. iCurly gets a 5-second penalty, and Indinator with a 3-second penalty now. Ace of Spades might get some points on his debut. He's going to get a bit of a tighter exit, and Indinator out of turn 11 is still closing in, or still hunting down his rival. Curly also goes to the pits. What tire is he going to switch to? I do believe it's still full wet conditions. He's actually going for the intermediates. That is surprising. Ace of Spades has damage on the right side of his front wing, so that's not really helping his case of overtaking the McLaren. Not the greatest throttle application there as well, as Miscu is obviously going to replace his front wing. Curly rejoins the track ahead of the duo we are following. So there you have it. It's Sandinator, we are on board now, and Curly is a bit far away from them, about 3 seconds away from the British driver of the McLaren team. Miscu is also going for a set of the intermediate tires. The rain seems like it has slowed down a little bit. Let's see how that one goes. Chaos also takes the opportunity to overtake the Mercedes driver. Kruzix goes to the pits. He's going for intermediates. Ooh, the mechanics were not prepared for him. He does change for the intermediates. Maybe the mechanics not being prepared was a lag on my end, a lag incident. But Kruzix also having a Ricciardo moment there. It does get demoted to P4. Iceman gets a 5-second penalty. Kruzix is out of the pits on a set of intermediates. Iceman is going to do the same. In the meantime, Ace of Spades isn't able to get closer to 28. He's actually losing time through the last lap. He's not going to be able to gain too much. And Iceman is... this is probably lag for me, because... yeah, this is definitely lag. He certainly has his mechanics ready for him, I am sure. He's going to get a brand new set of the intermediate tires. JSR isn't going to pit, so he's going to carry on his merry way on that set of full wets. Andinator is still on the intermediates. This might be where he could gain a bit of an advantage to his rivals. I don't know. Curly looks like... is he 40... I don't believe he's 40 seconds behind. 38 seconds behind Iceman. How? Oh wow, that is a big gap. Curly is through turn 1 and Iceman is through turn 5. So, as Curly gets another penalty to his name, Infamous gets to the pits, going to get himself a set of brand new intermediate tires. So, going to get himself to the end on those. Some of his rivals are continuing on the full wets though. Ace of Spades continues to hunt down Andinator, and Andinator is going to start to have the advantage. So, I don't think he's going to get much out of that strategy. I think he lost too much time. But nonetheless, taking a look at the position changes, Andinator maintains the position where he started as Shadow has left the session. The Renaults stacked. Well, Kruzix kinda trolled me there. They stacked. Plex is going to get back out of the pits, but Shadow, I do believe Shadow was the host as well. Shadow is out of the session. I don't know who can invite him back on, because this was invite only in the lobby. And I don't know who got the host, I don't know who can invite him. I actually don't think Shadow will be able to get back on the lobby, and this is a great opportunity for Infamous to not extend the lead, but actually get a big amount of time back. Kaibishimi goes into the pits for a set of intermediates as well. Let's see how it goes. He's going to serve the 5-second stop and go penalty for exceeding the pit lane speed limit on his first round over. And he's going to get down to P9 because of that. Ace of Spades is going to follow him into the pits on a set of full wets. That's a mistake for sure. Ace of Spades is back out on a set of full wets. That is not a good choice from him. Cisco is going to get himself unlapped, I think, as Cisco was going through. Shadow has been able to rejoin the lobby, fortunately for him. And Plexits, unfortunately for Plexits, is not going to be able to capitalize on that because they stacked. So Plexits did lose a bunch of time stuck behind his teammate's car in the pit lane. Now, Chaos goes into the pits for a set of intermediates, I would say. But yeah, Ace of Spades, there was definitely a mistake on him, because Did he actually... He didn't even change his front wing, and you can see him sliding there through the exit of turn 6. So, yeah, not really the best of choices from Ace of Spades. Pretty sure that was a mistake. JSR is doing the reverse endinator, it looks like. JSR is going to try the next 5 laps on the full wets, or is he? No, it's actually not. Okay, I thought for a second he's going to, which would be quite interesting to see. But no, that's not what he's going to do. He's actually going to get himself into the pits. Heisman claims P5 from the Toro Rosso. Will Curley get past the Toro Rosso? Going to find out. The Toro Rosso is just parked on his garage just now. Does JSR have a penalty, or is it lag on my end? No, looks like he does have a penalty, so Curly overtakes him. And Dinator as well. Kaibashimi, I do believe he's too far behind. Yeah, JSR is coming out of the pit. Superior GR is right behind him. And Kaibashimi, it might be close. It is close-ish. Is rejoining in striking distance of JSR, so we might have a battle between the two of them. Superior GR, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten disqualified by the game yet with the amount of penalties he has. Infamous got a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Going to figure out what it is, a 143.7, so he's really looking to claim the full 26 points on the table here today. Let's see how that one goes. Kaibashimi isn't quite keeping up with JSR, at least through this first sector. Already lost 3/10 to the Toro Rosso. Now, the thing is, we have Andy Nater 2.8 seconds behind. Oh, Ace of Spades goes into the pits again for a set of intermediates. Miss Q climbs up to P10. Ace of Spades could maybe try to stick with those. He's going to get lapped by one of the Renaults. I do believe it is Plexits right behind him at this point. Yes, it is. He's actually going to get very wide there. And that's Chaos about to overtake him. Yes, Chaos says thank you very much. And overtakes our debutee. So, let's see how that one goes. Chaos gets a bit sideways there. Ace of Spades does have one lap fresher tires. We might have a tasty battle for P11. It's not for a points paying position, but nonetheless, pretty sure they are still going to try to do their best to get the best position possible. Chaos is also not going to get a points finish since his debut at the last race at Canada. Got P12, today is P11, unfortunately. And is not going to be able to claim points unless something happens. Infamous drops his last fastest lap. Now it is a 142.839. So great lap from the British driver as the reserve of the Mercedes. So that one goes. As yeah, there's no other pair of cars as close as these two are for the time being. And Chaos gets a bit deep into turn 12. Ace of Spades does get much... Wow, Chaos completely gave up on that one. That is surprising. Chaos completely gave up on that one. Don't know why, to be honest. I mean, he could have rejoined the track, but he instead... That's a bit puzzling to me. Instead of trying to rejoin the track, he had the space to. But, well, that was a bit confusing. But... What happens at the end is that Ace of Spades claims P11 from the Belgian driver of the Toro Rosso. Jumping further on, let's take a look at Infamous, as Plexis gets his second time penalty to his name. When Infamous is really in control already, 30 seconds away from Kruzix, as Kruzix is getting the best result of the season for him. The reserve driver of the Red Bull has never finished above 5th place this season, and the 5th... Sorry, no, I was looking at Dazzlad. Where is Kruzix? Kruzix is just below him. Kruzix hasn't finished a race above 6th place before. That 6th place was achieved at Spain. He did get a DNF at Australia, did not start at Bahrain, then 7th place at China and Azerbaijan and Monaco, and the 10th place at Canada. So, as you can see, not really the most competitive set of results from the German. Nonetheless, is really on pace for a great performance. It would be his first podium finish as Andy Nater and I believe Kai Bashimi. Both of them got a 3-second time penalty to their name. So Kai Bashimi with that has now 6 seconds of penalties. And that really takes a knock at his chances. If they were slim, now they are none unless JSR has some sort of mistake. Jumping back to the potential battle 2P11, Chaos through the last lap has lost pace, or lost a little bit of space to Ace of Spades, as the Ferrari driver was slightly quicker in the previous lap, apparently. Going to try to push to get himself to P10. I'm not sure that's going to be possible though. Rather unfortunate stuff that he had that mistake that put him on a second set of full wet. Unfortunately, both debutees aren't going to get to the end of the race. Superior GR in the meantime, as you can see, Superior GR got finally disqualified for clearly not respecting the track limits. Maybe he needed more practice. It is unfortunate, but the amount of penalties he had, I apologize, sorry about that. I'm going to actually take a look at it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He got 9 penalties before being disqualified. And Ace of Spades has a mistake somewhere. Ace of Spades, I had to look away from it for something to happen. I apologize for that, guys. But Ace of Spades has had a big mistake somewhere. And the Ferrari driver is down to P12, as looks like it is a lockout of the last row of the pack for the Ferraris. Rather unfortunate stuff, but really not a good performance from any of the Ferrari drivers. Jumping back to the front and with Infamous, and what else is there to say, right? What else is there to say about these performances? That it's just demolishingly quick every single time he races. So yeah, we either need someone that would keep up with him, or I don't know. I think he could, especially as Shadow is dropping the ball a little bit, as Shadow isn't able to be the second best. He's actually 15 seconds behind Kruzix at this point, as Curly looks like he has made a mistake and drops down to JSR. He's going to not back down that easily though, as Infamous was actually very close to lapping these guys. Look at where Infamous is and where Curly is. Even Kai Bashimi, has he been lapped by Infamous? No, but he's close to. Nonetheless, we might have a battle for P7 to the checkered flag. Let's see how it goes for iCurly as he comes out of turn number 7. The tires complain a little bit as he has more laps of usage on them. Nonetheless, JSR just got a 3-second time penalty, and he might have thrown away his chances of getting that 7th place. Of course, Curly might have penalties of his own, so we're going to take a look at that later on. Ooh, a big complaint there from the rear tires as Curly was trying to put the power down at the exit of turn number 9. Chaos gets a 3-second time penalty to his name. Yeah, the rear tires from him are really complaining. He has been struggling with that as he goes for a move. He goes for a spin once again. At least was able to control it. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to play Eurobeat over the game because it would get copyright striked. But maybe you guys at home can play some of it, and it would be a very fitting song to that clip. So Infamous is going to get himself through the last lap, or to the end of the last lap. He has lapped Kai Bashimi, and there you have it. Absolutely demolishing performance once again, and he makes it 2 in a row. Infamous is going to cross over the line to take home the win of the French Grand Prix. Kai Bashimi going to get himself in 9th place as he's the first out of the lapped cars. Kruzix is going to finish eventually in P2. Shadow in P3, Plexits P4, Iceman P5, and Inator P6. I think all those are pretty set in stone, I would say. JSR, he got his penalty. Is he going to be able to claim P7 from Curly? Curly had a big mistake. Kruzix finishes P2. Yeah, I do believe the top 5, top 6 is set in stone. And Inator, despite that brave strategy of not going to the full wets, manages to claim P6, so a 3-place improvement compared to his starting position. The driver who gained the most was Iceman, qualified P11, finishes P5, so very well done from him. JSR matches him, in fact, both of them with 6 places gained from lights to flag. As of course, Kaibashimi gets 9th, Miscu gets 10, Chaos P11, Cisco P13. Ace of Spades jumps Chaos, unfortunately not able to get any points from that, and Iceman completes the top 5, nothing new there. Going to try to figure out, as he's going rather carefully, Curly, losing a lot of time, and just really trying to figure out how many penalties does he have, as Curly goes for a spin once again, and JSR claims P6! JSR, I don't know how long it took, how far away he was, but the 3-second gap allowed JSR to get promoted to P6 due to the penalties, and Curly probably going to get P8. Yes, he does. So Curly, unfortunately, once again, he had a good qualifying, but his form is tanking quite a bit. P9 at Canada after his win at Monaco and P2 at Spain, P9 at Canada, and P8 today at Paul Ricard. So very unfortunate stuff to see from the Swiss driver. We all know he's capable of much better than that. He was just uncomfortable with the car all race long. Now it's time for the celebrations though, as Infamous gets himself the 2nd race win in a row, 3rd win of the season, 4th podium finishing position for him. And every single time he races, he finishes in the podium. He's the only driver, yes, he is the only driver to complete all the drivers he attended so far on the podium paying positions. Infamous and Kruzix and Iceman were the only drivers without penalties, so discipline medal for them, if we can get one of those for them. But yeah, Infamous P1, Kruzix P2, Shadow P3, Plexus P4, Iceman P5, JSR P6, Endinator P7, Curly P8, Kaibashimi 9th, scoring the first couple points, I would say. Yes, actually not, he got P10 at Monaco, but it would be the first multiple point result for the youngster, and Miss Q gets his first points of, sorry, not his first points of the season, but gets P10, gets a point to add to the other points he got for that 8th place at Canada. So this is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like button. If you did not, the dislike button is, as always, right beside it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. Hit the bell icon for any notifications at whenever I'm going to start a live stream or to post any videos. Hope to see you guys next time, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.